Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haere mai, and morena to all the beautiful Aotearoa Kiwi sports fans around the whole wide world. Let's go global. We are here with the Niche Case Variety Show where we just roll through hard and fast the smorgasbord of mean Aotearoa sporting kai. Yesterday was Monday. What a great Monday it was. We recorded our Patreon podcast. So big it up to all the Patreon whānau for supporting the Niche Case and our podcasts and videos. And of course, if you do wish to support the Niche Case on our mission to broadcast Aotearoa sporting excellence, join the Patreon whānau, patreon.com/EL Niche Case. And you join the Patreon whānau, we deliver an extra podcast and just a whole lot of good vibes as well. So try to do a Patreon podcast on Monday mornings just to roll through epic sporting weekends like we just had. So check that podcast out if you are a member of the Patreon whānau. Otherwise, join the whānau, patreon.com/EL Niche Case. Every Monday and Friday evening, we also deliver an email banger via Substack, thenichecase.substack.com. All the Niche Case content is part of that email, as well as extra yarns, always updating Aotearoa sporting matters, try and keep it up to date, relevant, current eventy with the sports shit. And it's just a good read. It's just you get all the Niche Case straight into your email inbox, thenichecase.substack.com. And we're always writing about Aotearoa sports at theniche-case.com. For example, the Wildcard will have his Flying Kiwis wrap, always deep in the mangroves of the Flying Kiwis mahi. And they will be live today, Tuesday. I've done a Blackcaps test preview. Yesterday on Monday, I did a deep dive into recapping UFC 271. The Wildcard has got a new Steven Adams yarn. There's the Kiwi NBA angle of Sean Marks making a few trades that the Wildcard covered as well. So there's endless Wellington Phoenix content, Lydia Ko content, domestic cricket content, whatever fucking Niche Case Aotearoa sporting yarns you want to read about, head on over to the niche-case.com. Just breathe, get into a little bit of a mindfulness here, Wildcard, because we start our podcast with a dose of mindfulness from yourself in your humble abode up in the naughty north of Aotearoa. Please enlighten us with a dose of mindfulness.
Yeah, well, I did a Jack Kerouac one like a week ago, so I thought I'd dip back into the beat poetry scene with Mr. Gary Snyder, who I think is one of the only guys from that scene who's still alive, actually. Anyway, Gary Snyder once wrote, "The awareness of emptiness brings forth a heart of compassion."
The awareness of emptiness brings forth a heart of compassion. We actually talked about emptiness. Is that what you're referring to? The same author? We did something about emptiness maybe last week.
If you mean the Jack Kerouac one.
Yeah, it might have been that one.
Not the same dude, but they were good mates.
How do you interpret the emptiness leading to compassion? Because if I remember correctly, we were kind of like on the tip of emptiness is the infinite opportunity, infinite possibility. And it was all about, a house is just the walls and it's about what's in the house. A cup is just a cup. It's about what's in the cup. How does that tie into how does this new one tie into with compassion? That's where the intrigue is.
Yeah, that was the one from the Tao Te Ching, that the thing about the cup being an empty vessel until it's used, something like that. I think that quote probably does hinge on what your definition of emptiness is, because is it just like the like that infinite potential of whatever comes next, that kind of thing, like we're talking about with that one, or is it like the emptiness of like meditation, where it's like a sort of cleansing emptiness, or is it like the like Taoist emptiness of the void, in which case it's a bit of a I mean it sounds like a darker emptiness, but that's not the point of what that idea is about. And I think that's kind of like, I don't know, if you come at like the world saying like there is no meaning to life. Like, what's the meaning to life? There isn't one. There's nothing. Like, it's just the void. There's no meaning to it. That kind of also is that infinite potential thing, because if there's no literal meaning, like no inherent meaning, then that's kind of the best way to do it, because we get to define our own individual meanings in that case. Like, we get to choose what it is, rather than just being like, I don't know, told by God or whatever, this is what you have to do with your life. Like, we get to pick those things. So I don't know if you like pick your meaning of what you think the emptiness refers to in that scenario. But
what's the compassion? How does compassion come in? That's the question.
So when you swing it back around to compassion, I suppose I'm not sure how to draw the line in words, but like I can feel that sometimes. I don't know. I guess that emptiness like shreds away your own preconceptions and your own biases and whatever, and your ego in particular. And when you shred the ego, it's very easy to be compassionate for other beings, isn't it? Because you don't see that distance between yourself and others.
There we go. Had to let you talk through it and talk yourself into it. It was intuitively, I was like, the emptiness that that's where you've got no ego, you're detached from everything. So it's far easier to find that compassion for others. And beautiful. We got there in the end. Let's keep it moving. We will dip into our chili bin of hot takes. I don't believe you've got a poem or I've got a poem. So we're definitely going takey variety today. Dipping into the chili bin of hot takes here, Wildcard. Drastic Aotearoa sporting statements that rile up weirdos. What do you got?
Well, I kind of made the hot take on the last Nishcast podcast when I said that the Wellington Phoenix women were going to win their first game of the season, and I locked it in stone. I wrote it in permanent ink. I threw away the key afterwards, like I said this was going to happen, and I gave it a guarantee. And what do you know? They won 3-0. So like, I mean, I will say, like, they were coming into some good form. They'd been showing that they were close to a victory, and they were playing probably the easiest fixture that they'll have this season against a fellow winless team. So maybe it wasn't as bold of a prediction as it could have been, but they'd never won before. So like, one of the things I've said all along is that it's not so much about results; it's about like constant progress, like week to week, getting better each time with each game and each subsequent 90 minutes of experience for these young and up and coming players. So however, the results didn't matter so much as that progress, but there definitely did come a point where that progress started to overlap with the results, and for them to continue to make progress, they did actually have to start winning some, like showing, like winning a game or two. I think it would have got quite demoralizing if they hadn't. But they did, and they did so playing the same way that they had done the whole season up until this point. Like, they didn't change the formula. They've just continually got slightly better at it the whole way along. So I thought, like, I better like actually chuck out what that formula is, at least to my the best of my understandings here, which I can I'll limit it to about 4 key points, I think, here. So the first one is the high press. Is something you see quite often from them. They don't sit back. They do try. Like, this is why Chloe Knott's playing striker. Like, it's to get energetic players up front, pushing on the defense and not letting the other team build into their possessions early on. They've scored a couple of goals from those scenarios. They've caused a lot of pressure from those scenarios, which ties into, and all these things tie in together as well, which ties into the way that they defend, which is very aggressive. Point number 2, aggressive defense, rushing up. Not again, like the defenders don't sit back and wait for you to get to them. If they see a ball carrier sort of isolated, they're pouncing. They're stepping up 10 meters. They're rushing. They're getting a challenge in at the first opportunity. They're not getting pushed around, competing for every ball, all these kind of things. However, probably the thing that's taken the most time to build up is like just number 3, better position play. So like actually being able to win the ball is one thing, to hold possession afterwards is another thing, and like being able to actually string passes together and be effective like that. The win against Canberra first game in which they had more than 50% possession. I think it was 51%, like their best possession mark. Also their best, I think the most completed passes, I think, but I'm not sure on that, but definitely their best pass percentage. I think it was like 68% or something, which is still relatively modest. Like the better teams in the A-League women's are getting well into the 70s there, but the Phoenix aren't that yet. They hadn't won a game yet. They're on an 8-game losing streak. 68% is a significant jump on what they'd been doing earlier in the season. So that's awesome. And then key thing number 4, which is probably the one that's cost them from being able to close out good performances into getting wins earlier, is just converting chances. Like they have 3 shots on target. They scored 3 goals here. They scored just before halftime, just after halftime. They've had halftime leads before and they haven't added to them. And it's just been like 45 full minutes of holding on by the end of it. And like here, what happened is when they were under a little bit of pressure, they got out and scored a counterattack goal. Grace Jale's goal, like 5 minutes after halftime, massive. Canberra made some halftime adjustments. I think they made a substitution. They were coming at them hard. And the Phoenix were the team that struck back. And then, not check your own goal about 10 minutes after that, like converting chances, not just sitting back, being like clinical, but also adding to their lead. 1, 2, 3, 4 key things that they've been sort of working on throughout the whole season. Like it's not a new plan. It's not a new strategy. It's the same thing they've been working on consistently the whole time, just getting a little bit better each time. And finally it paid off in a 3-pointer.
I'm going to reach into the chili bin and I'm going to pull out a little piece of paper. And it's a piece of paper that states that Israel Adesanya is my pick for Aotearoa's best athlete or team right now. I believe there is no athlete or team that is as dominant as Israel Adesanya is in the UFC. And like this includes the All Blacks. The All Blacks haven't been as dominant as we know the All Blacks have been. Israel Adesanya is purely dominant in the UFC. His fight against Robert Whittaker, the way Israel Adesanya fights, he is not necessarily going to be knocking people out in the most entertaining fashion. Fights can go to points decisions. And when you leave it in the hands of the judges, things do get a bit sketchy, do get a bit dubious. But Israel Adesanya was clinical against Robert Whittaker, showed his growth. Robert Whittaker had 4 takedowns, and none of them had any detrimental effect on Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya controlled the fight from distance and did what he needed to do to defend his title bout in the middleweight division once again. As a middleweight, he is 11-0, I believe. He is now defeated Robert Whittaker and Marvin Vettori twice. They are ranked 2nd or 3rd behind Israel Adesanya, the champ. So they are the next best fighters in the middleweight division. And Israel Adesanya has beaten them twice, did so again against Robert Whittaker in clinical fashion. And Israel Adesanya is a leader within the UFC. He's not just a leader for Aotearoa and City Kickboxing. He is a leader for fighters within the UFC with some of the stuff that he is doing with his new deal and the way he thinks about his career in the UFC. So I don't know if you look around Aotearoa, there's too many people putting Israel Adesanya up on that pedestal as Aotearoa's best athlete, best team, best sporting figure right now. It is Israel Adesanya, a dominant force in an international global competition. Any country, he'll fuck someone up. Any fighter, he'll fuck them up. It's all good. He's a champion. He's a winner, and he keeps on winning in the UFC middleweight division. So big it up, Israel Adesanya. Let's get a bit statistical here, Wildcard. Pop the tab and open up that vitamin tinfoil of statistical joy.
Vitamin tinfoil. So anyone who's been listening to our a lot of this chat's probably been on our Patreon podcast, so people might want to subscribe to that bad boy, but we've talked about it a little bit on other things. There's been a little bit of a recurring theme for us wondering about, spin bowling in Aotearoa has been a recurring theme for ages, something like a common topic for us. But in particular, the new theory that you've surmised about, perhaps it's more effective later in the summer when you've had a full season of like just the sun caking those pitches and drying things out. Theory seems to stand up to logic, certainly. So I did a little bit of sort of like cursory research, and it was a lot harder than I expected because Quick Info don't let you separate things into months. So you had to go like month per year. So I have to check out the 2021, the 2020. So that was annoying. So I didn't get nearly as far as I hoped to. But I did, I looked through a few. Last test match I was played in after I set the cutoff at March. So anything that started after March 1st. Like there was a test in 2019 after March in which two wickets were taken by spinners for 140 runs. Nothing special there, but sort of working back through them. Obviously, there was that South African series that sort of sparked this when Keshav Maharaj got a bunch of wickets in 2017. That was one of there's some years like 2014, 15, 16 all in a row. There were no tests played after March. So I think there's the scheduling is a factor in this. It's not always games, but that 2017 season, the post-March spin wickets were one of the more effective ones that we've seen. 28 wickets at 28 in 3 test matches. A lot of them not flash. Like there's a lot of 40s and 50s just going year by year, a few high 30s. 2006 spinners took 13 wickets in 3 tests at 27.69. So not a lot of spin being bowled, but the spin that was bowled was relatively effective. And I can tell you why that was. It's because Sri Lanka toured that year, 2006, the time Murugaratne. And all the way back to year 2000, we had a year where spinners took 38 wickets at 22.73 in post-March test matches. And that was largely thanks to one Daniel Vettori, who took 12 for 149 in one match. So overall, since March 2000, and I didn't count the first few months of March because I wanted to count the first few first few months of 2022. I think it's more relevant to count the Bangladeshi test matches than the ones at the start there, and to keep a consistent timeline. So post-March spin bowling in Aotearoa since the year 2000 overall has seen 268 wickets taken at 40.03. The overall mark in that, including pre-March, every spin wicket in that time frame, 523 wickets at 41.64. So a slight drop in average, but we're talking 40 tests versus 172 tests. So that's less than a quarter of the tests, and half of the spin wickets have been taken after March. So that's a pretty good indication. I think also, 8 of the 14 best innings figures by spinners have come in test matches that started after March. The other 6 were all in December, curiously. Which I guess that's just volume. I don't know. But the other thing that I stumbled upon doing this, which was super interesting, was this isn't just for March. This is all spinners in Aotearoa since March 2020, since March 2000, beg your pardon. Daniel Vettori has the most wickets, 119 at 37.73. Don't think anyone's surprised by that. Daniel Vettori just, was always playing there. He was playing when pitches were not good. He was playing when pitches were good. Curious if you have a guess as to who is second, though. Which spinner has taken the second most wickets in Aotearoa since March 2000? All months.
Murley, the Doosra.
It's a good guess, but he is 6th, largely because he didn't play enough games. 17 wickets at 12.76. It's actually Shane Warne, so you're very close. Shane Warne has taken more wickets since March 2000 in Aotearoa than any other New Zealand spinner has, with the exception of Daniel Vettori. So Jeetan Patel's 3rd with 29 wickets. Warne had 32 at 24.62. 4th is Harbhajan. Then Mitchell Santner. Then you got Murali, Dinesh Kanaria, Monty Panasa, Keshav Maharaj, and then tied with Keshav Maharaj's 15 wickets at 19.93 is Paul Wiseman with 15 wickets at 62.26. So I just thought that was really weird that 6 spinners in the top 10 over the last 22 years, for wickets in this country are not actually from this country. They were touring players who just took a bunch of wickets on their spare tours. Whereas I looked in India, and unsurprisingly, the top 7 wicket takers in Indian conditions in the same time frame, all Indian bowlers. So there you go. It's a couple little tweaks there that add to the theory. I think overall, especially that sort of wicket volume versus wickets versus matches played, I think is probably the main bit of evidence towards backing up the idea.
My statistical funk is going to stay with the UFC 271, and we're going to start with Blood Diamond, who had an unfortunate loss in his UFC debut. His fight lasted 4 minutes and 38 seconds. 4 minutes and 35 seconds of that fight, Blood Diamond was under grappling control. So there were 3 seconds in Blood Diamond's UFC debut where he was not with a dude wrapped around him, which for a city kickboxing striker is not ideal, but he'll keep moving, he'll keep growing, and hopefully he will do what Carlos Ulberg did, because Carlos Ulberg in his second UFC fight, he landed 66 of 112 significant strikes. His opponent, Jeremiah Wells, landed 13 of 41 significant strikes. So a very small percentage from Wells to Ulberg. And Carlos Ulberg also landed 2 of 2 takedown attempts. So he showed a bit of wrestling, bit of grappling prowess there from Carlos Ulberg. So it's easy to see the progression Blood Diamond can make to step into that Carlos Ulberg realm. And I did mention Rob Whittaker's 4 out of 10 takedowns against Israel Adesanya, all of which came after Israel Adesanya absolutely lit Robert Whittaker's front leg up from kicks. 11 out of 14 kicks landed in the first round. And this is a key aspect of Israel Adesanya's fights. First round, light that fucking front leg up, get him on the pause so he doesn't rush forward and control the fight. 11 out of 14 kicks in the first round and 7 out of 9 kicks in the second round. Next 3 rounds featured less and less and less kicks from Israel Adesanya. So that shows the first round plan for Israel Adesanya is to kick the front leg and control the fight from distance. And then as the fight progresses, as Israel Adesanya gets more information, he moves into his range of skill sets. So some UFC 271 statistical funk there. Deep in the Mangroves wildcard, I believe you got some updates on C. Wooder, the Chris Wood.
Yeah, Woodsman. I obviously get nice and extensive about him and Flying Kiwis every week. He's often the headline act. And I wrote quite a bit in the email on Monday as well about the Substack email about how it would be very easy to look at the first 4 games that he's played and not scoring a goal, and just from that evidence alone surmise that, you know, he's struggling to adapt to his new team or whatever, and entirely miss the point that the role that he's doing is almost like Steven Adams-esque in terms of yes, he wants to score some goals. There's definitely more pressure on him to score than there is on Steven Adams, so it doesn't matter whatsoever. He could score 2 or he could score 15. It's not necessarily going to affect whether his team wins or not. The other things that he does is what affects whether his team wins or not. The little sort of subtle, selfless, team first kind of things. And Chris Wood's full of that. And I wrote, I'm not going to go into that now because I wrote all about it in the thing. What I wanted to do here is just highlight the fact that if other people don't notice it, I can tell you for certain that his manager notices it. And I know that Eddie Howe notices these things and, you know, the stuff that Chris Wood's doing to help his team win games. And let's not forget that they've won 3 in a row and should have won his debut as well. But for a late equalizer, they conceded. You look at the form table since his transfer to Newcastle, and Newcastle have gone from I think second to last or something when he signed for them, to only Liverpool and Man City have more points across the 4 game weeks that he's been a Newcastle player for, which is nuts. Just a complete turnaround. But Yeah, so this is I'm just going to roll through some quotes that Eddie Howe has said, because the thing with Eddie Howe is he's not only like, obviously when Chris Wood first signed, he's being asked a bunch of questions about Chris Wood, new signing, what do you reckon? How's he going to fit into the team? Like journos are putting him on the spot. Since then, Eddie Howe has just made like a point of he brings Chris Wood up just out of the blue. Like he's asked a question about, like the last one I'll throw out here is a question he's asked about his defense, and he brings up Chris Wood. So when Chris Wood first signed, Eddie Howe says, we're pleased with the signing of Chris. I think he fits in really well to the team. He's experienced. He's ready to play, knows the Premier League, gives us something a little bit different. I've never been shy of saying I admire tall, physical strikers who can give you a platform to play. I've signed many down the years. When you look at last week, we put 30 crosses in the box. We're crying out for someone with his strengths and qualities. I think he's going to be hugely motivated to play well for Newcastle, lead us out of the position we're in, blah, blah, blah. So like kind of laying the blueprint of exactly like how much he's going to like the dude. After his debut against Watford, he says, Chris Wood did well. He competed, gave us a different dynamic, thought he was a little bit isolated towards the end of the game. So we need to look at that. A couple of days later, again, he goes, he was asked about Chris Wood again. I thought he played well last week. We isolated him after he scored. That was evident at the time with Chris. We need to get bodies around him and he needs to be supplied. If we can do that, he'll be very effective. After the Leeds game, starts talking about, this is where we start getting into like unprompted quotes. It was a massive win for us. I thought we played very well today. First half, but cagey. Second half, really well, blah, blah, blah. Martin Dubravka played really well today. He made the save, come out of his box, took crosses. I thought our second half performance was really, really good. Chris Wood also gave us a platform as well from the central position. His work rate was tireless. Before the Aston Villa game that was just played, so after Everton, before Aston Villa, he says, it's worth highlighting Chris Wood's impact. I think his physicality, his ability to make life uncomfortable for the opposing centre halves has been key, as well in the last couple of games. Balance of the team's been very good. He'll want that goal, but I think it's not lost on me the difference his presence and physicality have made to the front line. There's been a lot of balls he's had no right to get a touch on or just knock a defender. That means we're able to get up the pitch, spend longer in their half. Also, his work rate and teamwork. He's covered for Maxi, a.k.a. Alan St. Maximin, a couple of times when he's out of position. For a striker of his type to do those unselfish things has made a big difference. I don't think you can underestimate all the aspects of his way that have helped the team. And then after that Aston Villa game, they're asking him about keeping a second clean sheet in 3 games. And he says, I do think today's clean sheet was a real collective effort from back to front, starting with Chris Wood, who, again, a lot of his work would have gone unnoticed from a defensive perspective, but he was terrific, as was the team. Like, this is just a common theme. Eddie Howe just randomly is bringing up Chris Wood to make a point of highlighting how well what he's doing is affecting the team in a positive sense. Like, he doesn't have to do these things. He's maybe thinking a little bit about getting out in front of some criticism that might come his way for not having scored yet, but like the praise is genuine. You know, he's at almost every opportunity he's just like shoehorning in Chris Wood praise whenever he can. I'll just say it's been noted, Eddie. It's been noted, and he's saying a lot of the same things that I'm trying to highlight as well, which is reassuring when you're writing about things and you get the coach who knows these things more than anyone reiterating that's good to see. Like, bottom line being, Chris Wood performances for Newcastle, doesn't have a goal yet, but he's doing the things that are helping them win, and he's contributing to this turnaround in form, you know, a lot more than people are noticing.
Deep in my mangroves, we have this Blackcaps versus South Africa test series, specifically the first test. And I wrote about this morning. So a couple of things are fresh on my mind. Let's start with the batting lineup. Tom Latham averages 43. Will Young averages 39. Devon Conway averages 69. Daryl Mitchell averages 43. Henry Nichols averages 40. So if we're entering a test with no Kane Williamson and no Ross Taylor, as is the new norm, those statistics do offer hope. Like if the 3 new dudes are averaging 40, 69, and 43, that's pretty damn healthy. And that is one of the key aspects I'll be paying attention to throughout this first test, is how productive the batting depth, in this case, Will Young, Devon Conway, and Daryl Mitchell, is against South Africa. because again, we've often talked about Aotearoa's blossoming depth, the pool of players that could represent Aotearoa in Test cricket or ODI cricket. And obviously, it's easy for lots of players to play T20 international cricket. It's all fine and dandy for me to celebrate that depth. But now I'm curious as to how that depth actually performs when it needs to. And given that Tom Latham and Henry Nicholls are the only kind of hearty Blackcaps veterans in that batting lineup, in that batting group, I believe the depth is going to be tested here. And I'm excited, curious to see how they perform, especially against the South African seam attacks that is quite good. In the Patreon podcast, I said Kagiso Rabada, Lungi Ngidi, and Marco Jansen were all under the age of 25. They're actually under the age of 27, and they average under 23 with the ball in Test cricket, which is bonkers. And they are all very good young seamers. Obviously, Rabada's been a monster for a couple of years now. So how does Will Young score runs against that seam attack? How does Devon Conway go against his, his homeland? And how does Daryl Mitchell develop? Like, Daryl Mitchell wasn't meant to open at the T20 World Cup, did fantastic. And now he's just continues to, the word that comes to mind with Daryl Mitchell is malleable. Like, he's a cricketer you can put into any hole, in any slot. He opened at the T20 World Cup and he'd never done that before. And I think that applies to this test because you could very easily see him bat number 4. Keep Henry Nicholls number 5, put Daryl Mitchell number 4. He's malleable. He's got skills that, well, he's just got a shitload of skills. Like, his skills just work in every format and any situation. So, yeah, malleable is a good word for Daryl Mitchell, like to the point where if he needs to bowl, he can bowl. If he needs to catch, he can catch. Like, this dude fucking does everything on a cricket field, and he's not going to kick up a fuss. So if Daryl Mitchell does have to bat 5, all good, no dramas. Like, these are Kiwis. These are team first players. Yeah, sure, you can put Henry Nicholls number 4, all good. And then we come to the Blackcaps seam attack coming up against that South Africa seam attack. And I think about weapons in Aotearoa. I think about Aotearoa seam bowling. I don't know if they've been able to weaponize their batting, because that the general premise of Blackcaps Test cricket in Aotearoa is bat first, bat once, bat big, and then bowl the team out twice. Like, it's kind of built on having a bowling attack to bowl out the other team cheaply twice after scoring a lot of runs. And of course, yeah, sure, if the Blackcaps are bowling first, yeah, they'll just fucking bowl you out for 150. That's what usually happens in Aotearoa, and that is what makes the Blackcaps a great team in Aotearoa, because either way, whether you want to celebrate their bat first, bat once, bat big theory, idea, or the other one where they bowl first, both of them, like, their seam attack is good enough to where it applies to both situations. Obviously, if you're batting first, you're not getting those juicy first morning conditions as well. So the Blackcaps seamers can still bowl teams out twice. Whereas you go to like Brisbane and it's all, you bowl first, you got to take fucking 5 wickets on the first session because you're not going to do anything else. Not in Aotearoa. Blackcaps seamers take fucking wickets any minute of the day, and they're coming up against a good South African attack, and there's no Trent Boult. So now we're looking at Tim Southee, Neil Wagner, and Kyle Jamieson without Trent Boult. What are they going to do? Are they going to be as dominant as they tend to be? Are they going to be, with support from Matt Henry? Is it going to be Colin de Grandhomme locking up an end? Or are we going to see Rachin Ravindra get more game time? I think there's a lot of funk to be had in the Blackcaps bowling department, a lot of curiosity as to how they perform, how they combine together. And same with the batting, which of these seamers is like, this is my fucking moment. No Trent Boult, maybe Neil Wagner against South Africa. That seems like a decent chance of happening. Neil Wagner, don't think he's had his moment this summer. And I think against South Africa in Aotearoa, no Trent Boult and a weaker batting lineup, I'd look to Neil Wagner to fucking fizz up and, drop a couple of fucking fucks. after, bowling deliveries, maybe even before. He just shouts it out, 25 meters away from his run up. Fuck you, Dean Elgar, and just steams in. I don't know. But the point being here, Neil Wagner is going to be very fun to watch. This test series is going to be very fun to watch. Blackcaps batting depth tested, challenged, curious to see what happens there. Seam bowling is always dominant in Aotearoa. What are the Blackcaps seamers going to do? So very excited for that test series wildcard. And I'm also very excited for my question to you. So trade questions here. As we know, a couple of pandemic things have been happening in Aotearoa, and Auckland couldn't play Plunkett Shield. What was it? Fucking, almost fucking years ago, last November or whatever it was, feels like years ago. Auckland didn't play Plunkett Shield in the first stanza. So they've been playing Plunkett Shield over the past few weeks, and they have played 2 Plunkett Shield games wildcard. And in those 2 Plunkett Shield Plunkett Shield games, Glenn Phillips has batted 4 times. He's scored 155 runs, average of 51. Strike rate, though, 129.16. So again, Glenn Phillips in the Plunkett Shield, 155 runs at a strike rate of 129, as well as 12.3 overs, 3 wickets at an RPO of 1.92. What's one word to sum up Glenn Phillips right now, wildcard?
Well, I didn't realize the 3 wickets part of that. I knew about the run scoring, 21 ball 50 the other day against Otago, having scored a 50 in the first innings at better than a runner ball as well, when he wasn't prompted by trying to speed up a result in that first class game. Chucking in the wickets as well. I mean, I've got words popping around in my head like ballistic or resurgent or whatever. I think I might. I don't know what the single word for this. I don't know what the single word for making up for lost time is. Maybe we'll just say busy or something like that. It feels like he's cramming a lot of cricket in at the moment. Bang for buck level of cricket. Bowling overs, taking wickets, and scoring runs very quickly, where he was maybe a little bit out of touch just before that. And perhaps has found some form by just going nuts with it. So I don't like the word busy, but I can't think of a better one for it. I don't know. He's in a hurry. He's trying to do understatement. Yeah, I know. That's why it's not a good enough word. It's only got 4 letters. I don't know though.
Well, I'm going to save you here. I'm going to save it. Swashbuckling. Glenn Phillips is absolutely swashbuckling right now. Wordsmith like yourself, Wildcard, that's a bit of a letdown. And I will suggest where deep, anyone who's paid attention to our podcast knows that I'm fascinated by the bowling battle between Glenn Phillips and Mark Chapman. Mark Chapman has yet to bowl a delivery in the Plunkett Shield. Glenn Phillips is basically operating as Auckland's second spinner. And he did so in the Ford Trophy. He has done in the Super Smash. So if you hear anyone talking about Mark Chapman's bowling, fucking flip it on their head and say, what about Glenn Phillips bowling? Because that motherfucker is swashbuckling. Your question, Wildcat.
Love it. My question is, in light of his absolute utter dominance of the middleweight division, what does Israel Adesanya do next? Where to from here? He's literally beaten everybody that could challenge him. Does he just keep dropping challenges for fun? Does he take another dip up a weight class, or what does he do next?
The phrase that comes to mind is just staying in the pocket, and this is you can think of it from an Israel Adesanya perspective. He's just in the pocket, he's ducking and weaving, he's faking, he's feinting, he just stays there. He doesn't do anything drastic. There's no outlandish moves. He's just in the pocket, in the flow state, maybe just, he's getting his striking off. He is controlling the fight, but he's right there in front of his opponent in the pocket. A similar example is Taito Ivasa against Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis punches Taito Ivasa in the face. Taito Ivasa stays in the pocket and returns fire. What Israel Adesanya is going to do next is stay right where he is and let everyone come to him and get absolutely destroyed. This is part of Israel Adesanya's leadership. because the UFC culture is very much the USA culture, where it's on to bigger and better things. It's about more money. It's about bigger opportunities. It's about growth and growth and growth and capitalism and fucking more. Let me do boxing. Let me do this. Let me do this, because it's all going to be run away at some point. Oh my God. That is USA culture. Israel Adesanya might do that. Fuck, who knows? I don't know. I'm just talking out my ass here. But he did sign a new deal. And his purpose with the new deal is to solidify and establish his greatness within the UFC. Israel Adesanya is going nowhere. And I think Anderson Silva's title defense is like 10 middleweight title defenses. Depending if you ask Israel Adesanya or someone else, Israel Adesanya has 4 or 5 title defenses. But those kind of historical markers for someone like Adesanya, who is a student of mixed martial arts and of life, some of those historical markers might hold appeal to Israel Adesanya, but that means he has to be quite busy in the UFC, which also doesn't feel realistic. But I am fairly confident in the fact that Israel Adesanya will now fight the next middleweight contender, and then he might fight the next middleweight contender after that, and he might move up to 205, the heavier weight division, and try and rectify what happened there. The most extreme thing I think Israel Adesanya is going to do is move weight division for a fight or two. Otherwise, I firmly believe Israel Adesanya is just going to defend his title bout and elevate his mana that way, which is shocking to like UFC fans and USA culture, because again, it goes against those ideals. But Israel Adesanya and Team City Kickboxing, they are the epitome of Aotearoa mana, and they do things differently, and that's how I interpret Israel Adesanya's future. But a musical jam, Wildcat. I've been jamming the new Mild Orange album, Looking for Space again. Dabbling in a bit of guitar music here, light and fluffy and just groovy and just relaxing. Like, chuck a bit of Mild Orange on. They're from Aotearoa. Good band. Like, there's some new music from the Beths as well, I believe. Yeah, last week there was a new song dropped from the Beths. Same thing. Just light, airy, fairy guitar music. Indie, some would say. It's just beautiful. Usually I'm on that hardcore hip-hop type of vibe, but I also switch it up. And Mild Orange has provided a nice alternative. So big it up to Mild Orange and their new album, Looking for Space. Wildcard, what do you got for musical jam?
Well, definitely that new tune from the Beths. It's always a good week when one of those is popping up. What else would I check? Definitely that Caleb Bond album that I mentioned last week. I'm enjoying that one. I think I like it better than the previous one, to be honest. And probably not a whole lot else on top of that, other than 1 or 2 songs that were all right that popped up in the weekly albums playlist that we do.
What were those songs?
I think there was a Mild Orange in there. I think there was that Beth song was in there, and covering our bases nicely there. Did you happen to, perchance, catch any of that Super Bowl halftime show?
Yes.
You did? Any thoughts?
Like, nicely choreographed, nicely blanked out swear words, like whatever the fuck. Like, it was fine. Like, I don't like, yeah, it was fine. Do you have
that's
any?
kind of how I felt about it too. I thought like it's nice. A lot of energy went into designing this whole thing. A lot of famous people popping up for, doing bits and pieces of songs that have been famous for years. And then I'm looking, like, scrolling down the feed and seeing everyone say, this is one of the greatest halftime shows ever. I'm like, is it though? Like, is it really? Can you be one of the greatest halftime shows ever where there's like 6 featured acts and no one gets to finish a song? Like, I found that weird. Like, everyone gets to sing the verse and the first chorus, and then you move on to the next song. I didn't find that like thrilling and whatever. I just thought it was kind of like cool. Like, you're ticking boxes in a way. It's like, not. It's cool that you got all these, like, cool and interesting and talented people in a row, just doing bits of pieces of songs that they can't perform anywhere near as well now as they once did back in the day. But with the exception of Kendrick Lamar, who's the one dude from a younger generation that was hanging out there. But like, I don't know. I thought it was weird just seeing the absolutely glowing response. It felt very nostalgic to me. Like people were like, I loved these guys when I was a teenager, and therefore I love them now, when it's kind of not the same thing.
Who gives a fuck? Like, shout out to New Zealand music. Shout out to New Zealand hip hop. Shout out to roots reggae in New Zealand. Shout out to light, eerie surf Aotearoa music. Like, that's all wildcard. We're not here for that American
They need
bullshit.
a surf act playing the next Super Bowl or something
fuck
like
the
that.
Super Bowl music. Who cares? Like, we just here for Aotearoa music. That's what we're here for. That's what the niche case is here for. That's what the variety show's here for. And we'll be back Thursday with another episode of the Niche Cast. Lots of sports still happening. Lots of cricket happening. Lots of football happening. Rugby league sparking up just around the corner as well. So enjoy yourself. Take some quiet time, because that emptiness is going to help you find compassion to other people. And if you got compassion for other people, fucking hell, life's just honkadory, no dramas at all. So big it up to yourself, big it up to Aotearoa, kia kaha, stay beautiful, sure.